Hey everybody, and welcome back to another book review. So I just finished the third book in the Drew Collins series, in that there's actually two different titles. I don't know what's going on with that, and I think that's the downside to digital books, or things that were released digitally, is that they get named different things, or they might have started out with one name and then the name changed. There's the title of When a Wolf Loves the Moon, and then a title of The Three Brothers. I like the title of The Three Brothers a little better. It makes more sense for what is happening in the story than When a Wolf Loves the Moon. I feel like that's only just like a fraction of the story versus the Three Brothers side of it. So both both titles work for the story, but again, third book in the Drew Collins series, or the Secret World of Maggie Gray series, by Granger. And this book, I would argue, is a little bit definitely better than the second book, more solid than the first book, I think. One thing that I really like about this author, Granger, is they are really good at writing these like cliffhanger pieces to the story. So you either have to keep reading or you have to go to the next book, to figure out what's happening or what's going on. And is really good about picking up where you left off in terms of action. That said, I do think like one of my biggest gripes, and the reason that I don't give it a 5 or still have not given it a 5, even though the story was infinitely better this time, is there's still some kind of holes and chunky bits that I'm just like, we could smooth those over with like some simple editing, or, having somebody kind of read behind you. I don't know how this series was published or is getting published. Again, it's a very new series. I think the first book came out last year. And I think they're like literally writing and producing at the same time. And so because of that, it just makes it hard sometimes to follow what's going on. And I'm not talking just about the cliffhanger pieces of it. I feel like those are written so well and so solidly. It's these other like, wait, what happened to this character? Like this character gets introduced and then they're like gone, and I don't know. It just kind of bothers me a little bit that there's not some kind of like re-going back and figuring things out. But anyway, if you've been following along, again, spoiler alert for this one, just because it's the third book in the series, and the most recent release, and I don't know when or if the next book is going to be released. I certainly hope there's another book because of the way this one left off. But so we're still following young lady Maggie Gray. In this book, she turns 30, and she and her friends Asha, Isis, and Susie are students at the prestigious Drew Collins University, which is an HBCU for mythical and magical beings. And Maggie has learned a lot about herself. She discovers that she actually has a brother, and she is trying to navigate this whole like new relationship of being welcomed into the first family. She's part of the first family of the underground, which is where all the mythical and magical beings live, or most of them. And the first family is a family of vampires. And the way that they describe vampires, which they dive more into that lore in this book, specifically for how this family came about. And in this case, it's that they likely had a disease of some sort that made them become vampires. It was passed, obviously, through birth. And then because of the amount of killings and just kind of doing a little too much, the people in the not underground yet decided that, like maybe we should not have them reproducing because it's very, very dangerous. And so it leaves them with this family that's been around for a very, very long time, very old, like well over 100 years, and it's been the same generation. They haven't had any kids. as far as you know, until Maggie pops up. And then you learn in the last book that Maggie also has a brother, Bellamy. And they're from the same family. And so they are trying to kind of figure out what to do with this new information. But what they also learn is that their grandmother, who was the one that had mated with the vampires, and she's human, that she had signed a blood contract giving up the brother, which is why Maggie didn't know that she had a brother. And so when they wind up together, they call her parents and they're like, hey, what's going on? Like, how did I not know that I have a brother? And it triggers the blood contract. So when they actually show up at the house, like, her parents think that they're dead and all this stuff. And so it sparks this kind of process with Maggie and Bellamy of trying to, one, break the blood contract, but two, also being forced to actually have to be siblings, and get to know each other a little better, because they literally become the only family that they have, since they can't talk to their real family. So there's that. And then on the other side of it, you have Maggie getting into this relationship with one of the coaches at the university, which this is one of the things that is just kind of holy for me in the story of that. Like, they keep saying, like, professors and students should not have relationships. They're not supposed to be together. But I'm like, but you're also accepting students all the way, like, up to age, like, 45, I think, is what they say the cutoff is. And so you have these giant mixed classes, and some of the professors would obviously be younger than some students, or just a smidge older, or the same age as the students. So it doesn't truthfully makes sense in terms of, like, saying that they can't have relationships. But for some reason, Maggie and Namir, the coach, their relationship is mildly fine. They just can't be public about it. I don't know. It's very weird, because in one of the other character cases, Susie, she is a succubus, and she gets into a relationship, not a true relationship, just like a partial, pretty much more of like 2 one-night stand situations with another professor, and he tries to get her basically kicked out, but, like, she backfires it on him and he winds up having to leave. I don't know. I was like, so she can't do it, but, like, it's weird. And so I just kind of wish that was, like, cleared up, or more fully developed, in, like, okay, if they're not supposed to have these relationships, and they are supposed to be kind of more hiding it, can we make that a little better? So yeah, there's that. But anyway, Maggie and Namir, they're developing their relationship, and Namir is, doing the gentlemanly thing, taking her on dates and stuff like that. And so in their magical world, one of the ways they move about is through doors. And so you find a door that has light under it, you knock on the door 3 times, and it'll become a portal to someplace else. And so he takes her around the world on this whirlwind date, where they go to Paris, and they go to Ghana, and they go to Morocco, and then they wind up at another HBCU, which is actually in Japan, which kind of sounds wild, but that HBCU is based on the Black Samurai. And I think it's kind of dope to, like, incorporate some of those historic events and people into the world and the story, just because it makes it really, really cool. So she gets to be at the graduation for Yasuki University, and kind of learn more about that history, which is really dope. And then at the end of it, they decide to consummate their dating, their union. They are officially, like, together. And because Namir is a werewolf, for him, it's more about, they kind of treat it kind of like imprinting, except that he says that he hasn't imprinted, but, like, everybody in his family is saying he's imprinted. But in whatever way that they consummate their marriage, or their relationship, He treats it as like, she is my mate for life, so it's basically marriage. But they haven't like had like an actual wedding yet. And so anyway, they consummate their marriage and discover that Maggie has a lot more control over the moon and the stars and potentially water as well. And so she starts to kind of figure out like how her powers work. And that is kind of the big cliffhanger of the book, is that, Namir in his, pack, because he's a werewolf, he gets kicked out of his pack for being with her. And his brother is killed, and he is not invited to the funeral. And so he finds out about the funeral through a staff announcement at the school. They'll be like, oh, hey, you know, by the way, we lost one of our, you know, awesome professors. And so if you want to support his brother and go to the funeral. And he's just like, I didn't even know there was a funeral. And so there's like all of this kind of tension and everything. And so he and Maggie go to the funeral as kind of like, hey, we're here and this is my mate for life and y'all gonna have to deal with it. But it turns into, literally, it was like, the best way I can describe it is, it was kind of like the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones, which, again, I've not watched Game of Thrones, but everybody knows about the Red Wedding, and if you heard of Game of Thrones or watched Game of Thrones, you know about it, and that's what it felt like. I was just like, wait, so who's dead? Like, it was just like, everyone's killing, and everyone's bodies are flying, and then they're turning into their werewolf form because Maggie has the ability to control when they can shift, and they're like turning and not turning, and some of them can turn and then turn back, and then people are going all over the place, and they're doing it. All of this is because Maggie's great aunt, so her grandfather's sister, had been kidnapping people from the university and putting them into these experiments to turn them into vampires and or other mythical beings, and basically create like a force of mythical beings that like have the first family bloodline in them. And she stole the blood from Maggie and Bellamy, which I'm like, oh my gosh, there's just like so much that happens in this book that I was just like, okay, this is like really truthfully diving into world building. I have no idea how many more books Granger is going to write in this series, but like at first I was getting really annoyed because I feel like the series is a wee bit oversexed, and not necessarily in a way that supports the storyline. And I also am just like, and I've mentioned this before, I'm not a fan of excessive cussing. It's just almost never necessary. And to me, if you can't figure out how to properly talk without excessive cussing, you're not an educated human. And this book kind of dialed it off a little bit, which was nice. But at the same time, I'm just like, wait, where are we going? Where are we going? Like, I'm on the ride now. I'm on the train. I was telling some of my friends about the book series, because definitely if you are a Harry Potter, Percy Jackson fan, this like really marries the two together, but with an HBCU piece into it. And like they talk about Greek life, they talk about it's not even Divine Nine, because like they're in the underworld, so like there is no Divine Nine, but like they have the equivalent of it, except they only have two kind of main groups, and that's the alphas and the betas. But like they hint that there may be others, and or there might be actual Divine Nine chapters there, so you might have AKAs and all that stuff. But it's just, there's so much in this world, and I just want to know more. I'm excited to know more. I really hope there's more books, because you cannot leave me on the cliffhangers that I was just left on. Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. So if you're into books like that, by all means, get out there and listen. Right now, there's only audiobooks. There is going to be a paperback version of the first book coming out in February of 2026. I will absolutely be buying it, and I'm hoping that they will release the other books as well. because it's just a good series. So yeah, there you have it. A little bit of a longer book review, just because of getting all the backstory in there. But 4.5 out of 5 for me. Not quite a 5, again, because of the things I mentioned. But yeah, great series if you are a recovering Harry Potter fan, etc., etc. Definitely go out there and check it out. So there you have it. Thank you so much for watching. As always, like, comment, share, subscribe if you so choose, and I will see you in the next book review. Bye!